Awesome. Okay, we are recording. So welcome everybody to LiveFULLy, our first LiveFULLy Zoom of 2018. It's super exciting. I hope everybody had a good holiday season and new year and kicking it off with some good resolutions, which I'm just super excited for the topic tonight, which is changing your mind. And so this has come up for me. I've been working with a spiritual mentor that challenged me a couple of days ago to really move forward in my life. So in a lot of different areas, and verbatim said, it's time for you to change. Like it's time. It's time to stop, collecting all the information and gathering it and organizing it and, putting everything to, it's time to move. Like enough of the stuff. It's time to go. And then after that conversation, a couple of other things happened. If any of you guys have not seen Peter Kelly's group on Facebook, it's called the Earthis Co., the Earthis Company, so their CEO. And so she did a video a few days ago, and if you look for it under her Facebook, just type in Peter Kelly to do a search if you're not Facebook friends, and then type in Earth is Hiring. So she did a video, and in that video she talks about living in integrity and having the freedom to change your mind. And so I started thinking about that, like, what does it take in order to change our minds? Like, we have that freedom, but we're so comfortable, our subconscious is so comfortable in keeping us in a normal state or what it's used to, that it wants to constantly pull us back into, who we think we are. And so, what Peter was talking about was really getting into alignment of who are we as a soul? And so you might be thinking, what does this have to do with obesity and compulsive overeating? And what it did is I'm going to share my screen now. I was going to show this later, but I feel like it's better to show it right now. Can everybody see it? The butterfly? Okay, so I actually just used the icon in the advertisement of tonight's Zoom as a butterfly, like just because I went to Google and put in, change your mind or change or something, and like this butterfly came up. But I know that Morgan has used this image for our retreat, one of our retreats. I think it was the one that was in Tennessee that Casey did in Tennessee. And really what it shows is, this evolution that we all go through is inevitable. Like, we have to go through change. And I just started thinking about this butterfly, that at some point in time, no matter what we're dealing with, whether it's overeating, whether it's, financial abundance and blueprints that have to change. Personally, I made the decision about 6-7 weeks ago to do the Ice a Body Challenge. And I did a live yesterday about how I've, started it several times before and quit. And this is the first time that I haven't. And so I started thinking about this, like, what does it take in order to really start evolving and making change? Like, when do you know that you're ready to make that change? And so I wanted to open this up for discussion tonight and talk about moving from, away from this old idea of self and moving into, like, what is the new version? I mean, it's 2018, right? Everyone's making decisions. I'll stop sharing and come back to everybody. Everyone's making decisions to do new things. I need to get back on track with my health. I need to get back into the gym. I need to, get back on a budget. It's like, well, how do we sustain that evolution and that growth and not get sucked into going backwards? and just really, you know, push through. Yesterday in the live that I did, we talked about the deception phase and how it's just critical to push through that. But one of the things that Peta said in that video that I loved is she said, when was the last time that you explored new beliefs for yourself? That, like, giving yourself the permission to change your mind about who you are, and what does your self-talk say to you that keeps you in the revolving door, that keeps you in, you know, like on the hamster wheel. What no longer serves you, that you've made this decision to move forward. And then, like, you know, what have you done? And I'm speaking for myself as well. And I'll share some of the things that I've decided to do, you know, personally. But, you know, what have you committed to for 2018 that you're really ready to make this evolution, to make this change and stick to it? So let me hear from you guys. Like, what are some of the things that you have made that decision on, as far as changing your mind? You know, this used to be me, but it's a new day. It's a new year. It's a new me that's moving forward. What are some? I would love to hear some of those things that you guys have made that decision on, or that you'd like to. Anyone?
I'll jump in. Well, I really resonated with everything that you were saying just then, and that I think if we want to become, you know, if we want to have these new things, we do actually have to become a different person. And I'm being faced right now with, you know, I have a new identity coming where I'm going to be a mum in, you know, a couple of months. You know, I don't really have a choice about that. But even in that whole process, I've sort of become witness to, like, the beliefs that were kind of just already there, and then becoming aware of them and actually going, oh, actually those, you know, that particular identity that I just kind of got conditioned with or was programmed there, I don't actually want to be. So I've actually had to go and make the decision, what kind of mum do I want to be? So that, you know, and so that's really been my focus. I've been using Isagenix for about 5.5 years, for everyone who doesn't know me. You know, and going through that weight loss journey back at the start, I really had to give up. Like, I had to, like, actually kind of renounce all of the beliefs that I had about myself, because I couldn't be the person that I wanted to be and have the old beliefs. I don't know if you guys know Dr. Joe Dispenza, but he's great. He's like a brain scientist, but what he says is your personality creates your personal reality. So if you want a new personal reality, you have to have a new personality. So you have to give up all of the stuff that you've been thinking for new ones. And someone installed the original ones, so we can install the new ones, which is really exciting. So, you know, that was my little share.
Can you tell everybody how much weight you lost? What your story is, since you're new to the call.
Yeah, sure. I started Isagenix back in September 2012, after about a year of saying no thank you. But, you know, I had these really I had a set mindset that, you know, I was kind of basically that it wouldn't work, and I was, I couldn't change the way that I was. And I'd been overweight my whole life. You know, I was like the fat kid in school. And so I started using the products, and it's like, oh my God, they're actually working. And that was a real struggle for me, because I was like, oh my God, I'm actually going to have to, like, the products, something's happening here. after trying a whole heap of stuff that didn't work, I went through a huge mindset shift, because I couldn't any longer believe that I couldn't change, because I was watching myself change. So obviously, then you want to go into self-sabotage, because you're like, oh my God, but because the need to be right can sometimes trump what you actually want. Do you know what I mean? Like my subconscious is like, hey, and you spent your whole life deciding that you're fat and that you're always going to be this way, you need this and that. Now something's not something to the contrary is happening. Yeah, and we didn't have the Healthy Mind and Body Challenge back then. So I took some other avenues. I did kinesiology, and I did, went to see different people just to help me with my mind, because physically there was all these changes happening, but I still had a fat brain. And so there was this misalignment that I had to bring back together. And so I won the weight loss category of Ice Body in 2013. Then I've used the products every day ever since. I just love them. They've helped me through just maintaining my weight, getting fit, and I've used them throughout my whole pregnancy as well. And yeah, amazing system.
Oh my God. So we have another Ice Body winner. So incredible. And you said so much in that. One thing that I just have to get out, I just had a face freak out, is that the two people that I wrote down to reference for this call tonight were Peter Kelly and Dr. Joe Dispenza. And it came right out of your mouth. So I'm going to go right to that. You guys, I was listening to a YouTube of him that he was actually on someone else. He talks about breaking the pattern of being yourself, and then how to lose your mind and create a new one. And so it's, kind of this play on words, but if you listen to the whole podcast, he talks about the science behind, what our brains are capable of. And Catherine, you talked about being the fat kid your whole life. That's who your mind had you become, right? That was your identity. That was who you were. And you're stuck in it. For me, I kind of felt like the fat kid, even though as a child, I really wasn't fat. But I think because I felt like it was as a year after I graduated from college, I gained 60 pounds and then continued to gain more and more and more until I was 100 pounds overweight. And that lasted for 20 years. That was who I was. And so now, to be able to make that shift, and it's a process, which is why I love that butterfly, is because there are different phases, right? It's not this flip of the switch that happens overnight. It's a process that you go through. It's books, it's podcasts, it's these calls, it's surrounding yourself with other people that are all about personal development and making progress in their lives. Another thing that I wrote down was something that Morgan had mentioned a couple of calls ago, where we were just coming off of the retreat in Hilton Head, the Growth U Top 50. And Casey's husband talked about doing an honest self-assessment. And it's there just does become a moment where you have to get real with yourself and where you are and what are the things that no longer serve you. And I'm going to give an analogy that doesn't have anything to do with eating, but what came to me when I was working with this spiritual mentor who was like, it's time to change, to be who you are, be it, as a true action verb, not just be it in motion. And I started thinking about my clothes, and I wore this shirt on purpose. It's this, you can't really see it, but it's this gigantic, it's actually a size small. Okay. But I got it at the store, Free People, when I was in Savannah. And it's the most comfortable. The fabric is super comfortable. I feel like I'm all in this like big snuggly shirt. And I love it. It's my favorite. And I started thinking about the rest of the clothes in my closet that I've kept in there as like, I might wear that at some point in time, that I have had for years. And I started looking at this stuff and was just like, I just don't resonate with that anymore. Like it's time for that old pair of pants to go to somebody else that loves it. That's just not, it's not my style anymore. I've seen that change. I actually had people make comments at the Top 50 event. I think it was Brittany Campbell, who was like, I love your new like boho style. And I mean, if you've ever known me, like I was never boho, but that's like the kind of clothes that I noticed myself buying and starting to wear. And it was just like, yeah, it's new. Like that's the new me. And it's kind of like giving ourselves this permission to change our mind about something that I feel like we really underestimate. Like we're so committed to who we are, especially like our brain's subconscious is so committed to maintaining this identity that has been created over time from years of people, saying we're this, saying we're that, from us believing it, that we forget about, like Peta said, when was the last time you explored new beliefs for yourself? Like, what if you just sit back and say, like, do I really like that pair of pants anymore? Like, what are the things that I just don't love? And how do you feel in your body about certain things? So that was another challenge that I was given too, is like, what happens when I put this shirt on? That I'm like, like what happens? Like my body actually like vibrates higher. My energy changes, and I'm like, it's my favorite shirt. I love it. Like I get in a better mood. And when I think about food, it's the same. Like, how does my body feel if I'm given an off day by my trainer, right? That's like, you can like take a day off, eat whatever you want. And I go and I pig out and I have something that's just crap after, being on my shakes and doing my whey protein and like counting my macros. Like I'm changing all of that one day at a time, right? And then it's like, go do whatever you want. I noticed this feeling of ick inside, like not just like my stomach, but everything, like my mood, like I was tired. I was just like, like the way that I felt after I went back to eat that food, because I had already started to change my mind about what I thought was serving me. Before, like when I, 100 pounds overweight, it's like, eat whatever you want. Like I wasn't paying attention to what I really felt like in my body when I was eating and eating and eating and eating, and the food was not healthy food. So what else is on your guys' minds as far, and again, it can have to do with anything, you guys, like this is really about, changing patterns of behavior, whether it's yourself or whether it's somebody that, you're coaching. But what have you noticed? Like, do you pay attention to how you feel in your body, when you make different decisions to make changes? Like, is it a struggle? Like, what do you notice? Mama Joy, I know you just came off of the Top 50 Growth U event, with a big group of us that went through that. And it was a lot about, identity and like, creating like, what is the vision that you have for yourself? And I know when I was 100 pounds overweight, like I didn't have a vision. I didn't know that I could have one. Like there was no idea of being different or being better or being healthier because I thought I was stuck. I mean, is there anybody else, that feels like that? That's kind of either gone through that now, or maybe you've gone through part of, that change that we saw with the butterfly. It's like, are you still in the cocoon? Or have you allowed yourself to start moving through that phase that butterfly goes through, one step at a time?
I think, Chris, sometimes for me, the idea of, I'm in my pajamas here, motivation, sometimes that can get where it's really tricky, because it's like if I wait till I get motivated, I'll be waiting forever, because it's like the motivation, you have to do something that starts that motivation to get motivated. And, I leaving work and trying to get into a different routine, work in my isogenics business, being at home, not being in a schedule, it can really, there's a lot of things that we all work through trying to get, what am I going to do now, and how am I going to do it? How am I going to get in a schedule? Being in control of yourself and making your own decisions. And I find that when you're looking at something that you need to do, you say, I need to do this, or I should do this. A lot of times our brain is set up to keep us comfortable, and that's where we tend to want to stay. And so we almost have to, when we're not following what we need to do, we're probably working from a part of our brain that's not the frontal cortex. It's the part that's a science geek here. It's part of the brain that's, does the loop and kind of keeps you in a state of where you're comfortable and where you're safe. And you almost have to take that opportunity to shift and make yourself for a while come into where you're actually thinking about making conscious effort to think. I don't know if that makes sense, but so a lot of times when I'm feeling I'm not motivated, or I should be doing this, I really start thinking, is this what I need to be doing? Whatever it is this helping me to reach my goal? Is this action that I'm doing right now facilitating what I'm wanting? And if it's not, then you have to take an honest assessment of yourself and just check it. And we all struggle. Things can be going really well at some point, and then you might get back on have a few days where you're not really doing. But no matter where you are, even if you're at that point where you've reached whatever goal you're at, or whatever goal you set for yourself, when you reach that goal, there's another one that's going to open up. So we're never, I know we talked about this at the top 50, we're never there. You're always in that state of becoming. So at the point, it's always that learning process. And there's no failure, because we're always in that that state of becoming what we're wanting to be. And that's where the beauty lies, becoming.
I love the becoming.
Because there is no there.
There isn't.
Anyway.
And it's like even that butterfly, I'm going to go back to it. Even the butterfly at the end is going to look different after this. Like after the last stage, it's like this idea of becoming. And, Mary, I know exactly what you're talking about when you talk about self-sabotage and fear of failure. Thank you for putting that in the chat, because that is exactly the pattern that you've gone through over and over and over. It's the pattern that I went through over and over. This is not going to work. You are not going to be able to lose this 100 pounds. You're going to lose 10 or 12, and then the rest of it's going to come back. Why? Because that's what happened over and over. And so pushing through that perception of how it's going to turn out, right? And being open to, does it have to be this way? every time. Like, can I get out of the cocoon, move forward, and like start coming out of this shell? Like, it's a process. It's going to take one step at a time. But it starts with being open to the idea that it can happen. Like, if you're not open to it, right? Like, then it's that, like, you know, Joy, you just said, like, it takes a conscious, like, you have to, like, make yourself think about making that shift. And so here's the other picture that I wanted to show you guys. You guys, this is my money tree, and it's in my office. And when I bought it at Home Depot, it was gigantic. It was flourishing. And I was like, I have to get this money tree and put it in my office because it's just going to get bigger and bigger, and it's going to become more abundant. And I need it in my office. So you can see the top of it is losing leaves one at a time. Every day I'm looking at this money tree, and I don't know if I've overwatered it or what it is, but what came to me today when I looked at it is I looked at the bottom of the tree, and it's got these brand new, super bright green, shiny sprouts. The leaves on the bottom section. And so the top of it's all fallen off, one leaf, and I'm like, no, like, my money tree is falling apart. And so, of course, symbolically, right, I'm like in my head, like with my struggle my whole life of money, and like not, you know, never having enough money, and like abundance, that whole symbolic idea and perspective around it. I mean, imagine, right? Like, I'm watching the leaves fall off of this thing, and I'm like, I moved it. It was in a different room, and I moved it into the office because I was like, well, maybe it should go in here. You know, no, the leaves are still falling off. But my perspective is everything. So I can focus on the money, the leaves that are dying and falling off on the top, or I can think about new beginnings, right? Like, maybe that old part of the tree is done. It doesn't need to be around anymore. Like, that part is dying off. But the good news is that look at all of those leaves on the bottom. They're bright and green, and they're new, and it's like a whole new tree is starting at the bottom. And so I just, you know, that it just kind of came to me like about a half an hour before the call that I was like, you know, this whole, the idea around the money tree, but like, how else can we apply that in our lives? Like, where focusing on what has kept us in struggle, what has kept us in the patterns that don't serve anymore. The fear of failure, that like, if I do this again, here we go again, right? Like, it's just going to cause one more go round of failure. Safety. Like, it's scary to make a change. It's scary to go do something brand new, because it's like, well, what if you actually succeed? Like, you know, then what are you going to do? If you become this new person, well, that's not comfortable, because that's not the person that I know. All right, let me stop there and see if anybody has any thoughts and wants to share.
I remember back when like the first few people started noticing, they were like, oh, Catherine, like, are you losing weight? Or like, you look good, or like, I think you've lost some weight. And I freaked out. Like, I'd be like, oh, no, I don't think so. And I just like would just leave the room and just be like, oh. Because once people start noticing, it's like you have to be accountable for what you're doing. Like, it's not a secret anymore, and you start being seen. And I think that was probably the biggest thing for me, is moving through that fear of being seen. And it was safer to hide behind the weight because it felt safe for some reason. So yeah, I definitely had to spend a lot of work on telling myself that it was safe to lose weight, that I was going to be okay. In fact, it was the better option. Yeah.
I thank you for bringing that up, because I felt the same when I had to face my alcoholism. That it was like, if I say it out loud, if I bring it to the surface, right? Like owning your story, then that means I'm going to have to do something about it. And I was so safe and comfortable in what was not serving me because it just felt normal, that I was like, well, that's going to mean that I'm going to have to change. I'm going to have to change. And that's, it's super scary to do that. You know, Alginette was, I know I'm in the cocoon stage, like, you know, like you're fighting change. Like, yes, like that's the whole idea, is that, you know, we're starting something new. And it's even with isogenics, with, you know, if you've made this decision, like this is going to be my year to get this weight off, to make a change in my behavior, there's an excitement and, you know, maybe like a motivation in the beginning, but at the same time, there exists this fear of, am I going to be able to do something new? Like, is it okay if all of the leaves fall off of my money tree? Like, am I going to be okay and have the patience to see if new leaves can grow on the bot? Like, maybe there's a new tree that's coming up and that old one is passing away. So like, can I have the courage to let them die? Let the thoughts, the patterns, the old me who I was comfortable with, who I knew so well, that everybody else knew so well, like, can I just go be a different me? And that's the power of being able to change our minds. Another thing that, you know, this really bubbles up for me, and Peta talked about this on her video, is authenticity. Being able to say, she said, this is a quote, I believe, like I've changed my beliefs. I have a new idea of truth. So I believe something that's more rewarding for me now. I mean, how powerful does that sound? Like, just to say it out loud, like, I believe, like, my truth has changed. My truth used to be that I was the fat girl of all of my friends. That I didn't have the power to stop the overeating because that's who I was, and that I just did not have the strength, the willpower, the whatever, to be able to step out of that and make a change and do something different. But to be able to have that as a mantra and say, I'm taking that power back. Like, my truth has changed. I am choosing to believe something that's more rewarding for me. How do I feel about, like, inside, in my brain, in my heart? How does it feel to say, I choose to change? I choose to go back to be, instead of the cocoon, I'm going to the next, I'm coming out of it. I'm moving on to the next phase. And that's, you know, one day at a time, one meal at a time, one decision at a time. But if we can stop, like, just long enough to think about, you know, am I loving myself? Am I making the best decision for my highest good? Like, can I be authentically me that is rid of the stuff that's keeping me on the hamster wheel? It takes courage, you guys. It takes patience with yourself. It takes courage. Yeah, she also talked about integrity. Is that it's not about anybody else. You know, having the highest level of integrity is about you and your soul. And that's it. And so it's like, how do you feel in that relationship with your soul, with your spirit? Like, does it feel good? Or are you ready to say, I'm so ready for the new leaves to grow? I mean, what a more perfect time. You know, it's like the turn of the year. Everybody's making these decisions. Like, let the old ones die off. Let them fall off. You know, here I was like afraid, literally feeling, Mary, just like you said, like feeling afraid that like, oh my gosh, like what am I going to do now? Like this fear of change, that these leaves, like they're falling off, they're dying away. But instead, you know, was able to kind of make that shift and say, oh my God, look at all these new ones. Look at the new ones that are coming up from the bottom. And that's, I you know, Catherine, well, like with your story of, I mean, how long did that take? That's not a light switch, right? Like I mean, it took some time. It took some, how many situations were you in that you just wanted to retreat from because you're like, oh, like here comes that change thing again?
Yeah, I reckon, because I was probably about, close to 100 pounds overweight by the end of high school. And then I spent 10 years, you know, at, I think you guys call it college, whatever, uni. And I'd gotten I'd gotten some of the weight off. But that took like 10 years, and I lost maybe 20 odd kilos. Was that like 40 pound, 45 pound, 50 pounds, something like that. And I thought, okay, well, this is kind of it, you know. I'd lost a little bit more weight. I got really sick. I had glandular fever. So like I was at my lightest before isogenics when I was horribly unwell, and then immediately just put on, put back on 10 kilos or whatever it was. So it took me, let's say, 10 years to lose 23 kilo, and then 8 months to lose the same again with isogenics. So it happened really fast. And like I popped in the chat there that it's a grieving process. It is and I did cry a lot. Like it is emotional. And especially when you're cleansing, there is a lot of stored emotion in the fat cells. You know, we do actually store emotions as molecules in the body. So when you are cleansing, like I remember calling my coach back, you know, near the start, and like, you know, I would just start crying on cleanse days. She's like, just welcome it like it's coming up to leave. And so just really trusting in the process that everything that I had stuffed down, you know, everything that I'd eaten, like every time I was eating with like shame or guilt, I was ingesting all of that shame or guilt, and now I'm cleansing it out of my body. So if anyone is having the resistance to not wanting to feel that, just really embrace it, because it is going to come up, but it's coming up to leave. And just you know, allow yourself that space to grieve, because you are having to say goodbye to somebody, you know, a lifetime of release, but you're walking towards something better. And so I really, in that grieving, I really honored that, you know, that the person, because it was, you know, the embarrassed and ashamed, you know, overweight Catherine that started the journey, and that required a lot of strength. So I really was able to honor her, because the courage that it took for her to walk that path, so that I can now, you know, enjoy the health that I have now. I don't kind of remember if I answered your question. I've got baby brain.
You're allowed.
Yeah, like it's. I think we fool ourselves if we think it's just going to be all like sunshine and rainbows, and like, oh my God, you know, like you'll really discover who you are in this process, and it's worth all of it. Yeah, definitely.
I love it. I love that. I went through the same after I lost all of, and I think I've talked about this on previous calls. After I lost 100 pounds from the gastric bypass surgery, I went through a total identity, like, trauma. I just did not know who I was, and I didn't know what was wrong with me. I didn't know why I was crying, that I was just like, what is the matter with you? And I have never felt more lost in my life, because I had, like, visibly lost what I thought was my truth of my identity, of who I was. Like, it was gone. And so for me, it was like rebuilding. Well, like, who am I now if I'm not that person, right? But it's a challenge. And then even now, where it's not, physical weight, there are so many other areas in my life where I'm discovering, like, who I really am. Like, well, like allowing myself to challenge who I always thought that I was, right? So, and deciding what parts to keep. It's like the closet, like cleaning out the closet. Like, I am so excited to go into my closet and look at, like, each item one by one. And if I am not 10,000% in love with that thing, it's got to go, because it might, if it's like, nah, I don't wear those anymore. They're too tight and they're uncomfortable and I don't like them. Like, so they got to go. And I'm just using that as an analogy, but when we think about, what our patterns are that we're so attached to, just really challenging and encouraging everybody on the call, again, like, whether it's you yourself or someone that you're coaching, to talk about this challenge of allowing yourself to make the decision, allowing yourself the choice of deciding, how does this truth feel on me? Like, is this my truth? Like, do I need to overeat for the rest of my life and feel a struggle around it? Or, like, can I release that? Can I let that part of me fall away that has been part of my life for so many years, and decide to embrace something else? Like, I changed my mind. Who is this new person? She's new. It's fun to say that. It's like, oh my God, like, I've never seen you dressed like that. I know, it's new. Like, I lost my style, like, I'm into antiques now. I used to like Pottery Barn, and, like, now it doesn't resonate with me. Like, I've changed my mind. And I just, that you guys, if you have a chance, go back, find Peta Kelly. It's actually not in her group, but the video that she did, is just under her name. But listen to what she has to say about, really challenging your beliefs and deciding for yourself, when's the last time that you allowed yourself to explore new beliefs? Because we stay in them. They become a part of our lives and a part of our brain and our psyche, and we just stay in it, and really, like, ask the question, like, is this who I am, or is this something that I am ready to, no, that's not part of my truth. I have a new truth. What did the quote is? I believe something now I believe something that's more rewarding for me now. I no longer believe that about myself. I believe something that's more rewarding. And then see how it feels when you go to the fridge, or to Krispy Kreme, or to, my favorite was Little Caesars, those cinnamon bites with the frosting all over it. How does it feel after I've gone through a half of a bucket of cinnamon bites. You know, I'm just like, bleh. Like that just doesn't feel good anymore. And so, okay, anyone, we were coming up, we got about 10 minutes. Is there anybody that wants to share about this? Any other areas in your life, even besides eating, that have come up for you that you feel like maybe it's time to let the old dead leaves fall off, even though it's scary to watch them fall off when you believed in them so much, but maybe there's some new sprouts. No. Okay. All right. Well, that's all I have to say about it. And I am really grateful for everybody who, I'm looking at the chat, James, I need to go clothes shopping. Yes, you do, because your transformation is incredible. Like, yes, you need to go clothes shopping. Morgan and I were actually talking about that too. I'm like, girl, I'm like, don't take this the wrong way, but you need to go buy some shirts that fit, because you're not the same. You're new. Like, your body is new. Like, you need to like embrace the new you, the new fresh sprouts. It is challenging. It is. And we know when I first lost my weight, and I shared this with Morgan about a week or so ago, I struggled. I went to the store and I swore I was still picking out 10 and 12s off of the rack. And the lady was looking at me. I weighed 138 pounds. And she's like, what? I was like, yeah, do you think these will fit? Like, is this size good? She's like, no. Like, you're like a 6 or an 8. And I'm like, what? No, I'm not. Like, it was that difficult for me to wrap my brain around that girl. That part of that girl is gone. That is no longer my truth. It's no longer it. Like, it's gone, and let her go. And that's going to be different for everybody, but I just, I hope everybody leaves this call open to all of the areas in your life. Thinking about, people that you come into contact with, if you are doing isogenics as a business, that's struggling with compulsive overeating, and like, it's so hard to get out of the pattern. It's so hard to make a change. It's how in the world am I going to lose 100 pounds? That there are people, I mean, like Morgan's over 105 or 110, I don't even know, it keeps going up and up and up. There are so many people that are doing it just like that butterfly, one phase at a time. And to just allow yourself to not be in the cocoon anymore. Allow yourself to consider, does this really serve who I am? Like, is this part of my truth? Does it have to be? Or can I let it go? 108. Oh my God, 108. Crazy. How many kilos is 108 pounds? I don't even know. 40? Something like that. All right, guys. So thank you so much for joining. I appreciate you, and let's rock out 2018. You guys are all part of our first 2018 Zoom, and be open to changing your mind. Question everything. Every time you do anything, like, is this something that I have the choice that I can make a change? I believe something that's more rewarding for me now. So I love you guys. I appreciate you. And have a great Monday night and a great week. And we'll see you next Monday at 8. Bye.